Captain Midnight.
The first two episodes of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man just hit Disney Plus, and I really want to talk about them. It's been 4 years since I checked in on Disney XD's Spider-Man show, and 7 years since I talked about its very first season. Which, God, that is a really long time. Existential questions about aging aside, I was actually pretty eager to see what Disney Plus had in store, after just having so little positive to say about that show or the one before it, Ultimate Spider-Man. So I'm glad it's finally here. I will say right up front that unlike a lot of mainstream critics, many of whom were very positive, I have not seen any episodes in advance. Disney has never given me screeners or anything like that, so I am watching alongside all of you. This video is about the first two episodes, and I will be spoiling them. Now, if you'd like to see me cover the rest of the season, please let me know down in the comments or give the video a like. It makes it a lot easier to tell if the appetite is actually there for that. I have a lot to say about this show, some of it very positive, with one or two big lingering negatives. So I think I'll start with what I liked and work my way to the harsher stuff. First, I will say I think this is a lot better than the last show, and definitely better than season 1 of the last show. They have a lot in common, honestly. A very young Peter Parker going to an upscale STEM school and adjusting to life as Spider-Man. But Friendly Neighborhood manages to imbue its world and characters with a lot more texture. The schools they both go to are a prime example. Now, I don't actually like Peter going to a really fancy school for gifted kids. I think it takes away from his everyman appeal. But at Horizon High in the 2017 show, it basically meant every character was a mini Tony Stark, able to reel off more technobabble than Geordi LaForge, and create weapons and plot device gadgets for Spider-Man basically out of thin air. So far, that has been significantly toned down here, giving us a far more grounded and believable school that feels like an actual school. And the cast that they decided to surround Peter with is actually a pretty unique one. I won't linger on the behind the scenes stuff too much because I'm sure most of you already know this, but Friendly Neighborhood started life as a prequel to the MCU Spidey films called Spider-Man Freshman Year. The choice was made to separate it into its own thing later on in production. I could see how this could make the show feel less important in the eyes of die-hard MCU fans, but I think creatively it was definitely the right one. And it's interesting to see how the show bears so many of the marks of its MCU origins while also having such a different cast. There's Nico, which I was not expecting. I was a big fan of that first Brian K. Vaughan run of Runaways comics, and not much from her since, honestly, though I do love that underrated Midnight Suns game that she's in. She's kind of been slotted into the MJ role from Homecoming here, and if I had to guess, that's who the character originally was. She also reminded me a bit of Gwen in Spectacular Spider-Man, and I could see them maybe going down a similar road as that one did with this relationship, though they also make it clear that she has a crush on the same girl that Peter does, so there's really a few avenues that they could go down there. That crush is Peter's former babysitter Pearl, aka Wave, a pretty obscure ocean-based hero that I really only know from that War of the Realms event from years ago, and her new quarterback boyfriend Lonnie Lincoln, aka Tombstone, the classic Spidey villain. So far, these characters have really nothing to do with their comic book counterparts, but I'm definitely willing to see what the show has in store for them, and I probably prefer it to seeing the $1,000,003 interpretation of Flash or Liz Allen. Pearl really doesn't have much to do yet beyond being the object of Peter's probably unrequited crush, but Lincoln feels pretty promising. When he's introduced, it's easy to assume that he'll be this bullying jock, but it's soon clear that Lonnie is really on that Andrew Luck grind and wants to be a great athlete and a great student. He and Parker fall into being fast friends, and it seems like he's becoming kind of an older brother figure, which Peter seems happy about, despite being a little jealous of his relationship with Pearl. We also get a surprising bit of Lonnie's home life. I wouldn't say it's anything super groundbreaking so far, but if this show is going to run for years, this high school cast has to have some depth to it. That's something Spectacular did so well, and I was happy to see them already laying the groundwork for that here. Now, the show's Aunt May feels straight out of the MCU, to the point where even her in Peter's apartment is clearly the one first seen in Civil War. And that's where the show's what-if style premise really snaps into place. Instead of Tony Stark, who we do know exists in this universe, we have Norman Osborn as the rich industrialist who takes an interest in Peter. Here, he's actually played by current Oscar nominee Colman Domingo. It's a little too soon to know for sure how I feel about these versions of Norman and Harry. They get precious little screen time in the 2 episodes, but Domingo's performance starts things off on a very promising foot, exuding authority and intelligence with that little needed hint of menace. I really don't have much to say about the cast at Oscorp yet, like this new version of Dr. Connors, as we barely got much time with them, but I liked how skeptical they seem to be of Peter, which I think gives the show some much needed dramatic tension, especially with most of the school cast being so chummy with puny Parker. I just think there's a lot of promise here, character dynamics that are perfectly well set up that I could see paying off down the line, and a predictable but still fairly compelling cliffhanger in episode 2. Overall, I think there's a lot to like. So where do the problems come in? Well, there's maybe a couple big ones. I can't say that I love the animation. I know they said they're going for this like Ditko/Ramita Sr. aesthetic. I don't really see Ditko honestly, but definitely some Ramita Sr. I think there are sequences and still images where it really works, where it feels like an old comic book leaping off the page. And there are also scenes that give kind of a Nintendo 3DS cutscene vibe, or maybe more charitably, a cel-shaded version of the early 2000s MTV Spider-Man show. I know opinions are split on this, and I'm no animation expert, so I won't linger on it too much. I'll just say for me, I think there probably are a few too many times where its TV budget shines through, especially if you're trying to compare it to like the Spider-Verse movies. But I understand the constraints of television, and I don't hold it against the show too much. And I think the action sequences are often very nice and fluid. It does the job, even if this maybe isn't my preferred art style. So that's not my biggest issue. Maybe you've noticed I haven't really talked about Peter Parker himself yet. And that's because I don't like him all that much. Now, for those who remember my issues with the 2017 show, this is a huge upgrade. I absolutely despised that take on Peter Parker. This is better than that, but I still see a lot of shades of what I don't like about that Spider-Man here as well. So, okay, this performance from Hudson Thames is clearly heavily inspired by Tom Holland. That makes sense. He played Holland's Peter in What If, and I believe he was attached to this project when it was a Homecoming prequel. So there's a lot of shades of Holland alongside what I would call a more adorkable take on the character. I can't believe I'm drudging up this like awful fake word from the New Girl marketing team, but adorkable feels like the best way to describe it. It's this take on Peter Parker that seems to be the default now in a lot of ways. Constantly befuddled and tripping over his own words, endlessly understanding and almost never seriously angry. Now I understand that Holland's Peter has a lot of these qualities, but the animated shows, including this one, have really been turning them up to 11. Sometimes to very good effect, I should mention. I really like the scene where Spidey stops a woman from robbing a pizza place, realizes how much she's suffering, and tries to give her a leg up by talking to the owner. It's a good, well-executed scene, and it embodies a lot of what I've always liked about this character. But there's another side to Peter Parker, especially in older comics, that I really miss and I think is missing here. There's kind of 2 levels to this, and I'll take on the shallower criticism first. I'm just pretty over this style of writing dialogue where everyone is like adorably befuddled all the time, leading to a lot of off-the-cuff, awkward punchlines. There's a time and a place for it, for sure. And these episodes, where Peter has his first day at a new school and then his first day at a new job, have plenty of reasons to use that where it fits. Like Peter talking to the girl he has a crush on, or awkwardly trying to come up with an excuse to leave work early, stuff like that. But when it starts to feel like that's the mode the character is in all the time, it just gets a little grating. And this is a larger issue, but it just feels like this style of faux improv humor is like 85% of genre fiction now. Now, I know I'm painting with too broad of a brush with this critique, and there's shows, movies, and books that do it extremely well. But I've gotten to a point where I really do think 30 years from now, people will look back on this, sorry, were you in the middle of like, a thing? Style of dialogue as being as dated in its own way as the stilted language of like a 50s DC comic. Like I said, there's a time and a place for it. This is a show about a young hero, so I get it. I just hope the show can find other modes of writing Peter as it goes on, which really leads into my larger critique. Being inspired by Ditko has been a big part of this show's marketing, and sure, he dresses a little closer to Ditko's Peter than Holland does, but sometimes I feel like they couldn't be farther apart in terms of personality. Ditko's Peter was often spiteful and angry, to the point where he comes off as a really unsympathetic jerk at times. Now, Romita Sr. and later eras of Spidey definitely toned down these elements, even if it was still there in at least some capacity. Here, it just feels gone. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not asking for angry anti-hero Spider-Man, just that these animated shows let Peter have more personality traits that aren't always cute or flattering to him as a person. That he's allowed to be thoughtless and mean at times and let people in his life down. Not just by failing to show up when they needed him, but because of his own personal failings. Everyone knows the motto. The first appearance of Spider-Man in Amazing Fantasy 15 ends with a caption from Stan Lee saying, "And a lean, silent figure slowly fades in the gathering darkness, aware at last that in this world, with great power, there must also come great responsibility." We all know this is the defining statement of the character, and it's also a weight around his neck. His power allows him to be anything he wants, a thief, a bully, a selfish monster who believes that his might makes right. The most compelling aspect of Peter Parker is that he has those options open to him, always, yet makes a choice to be better than that, even as it makes his life harder every single day. And for that choice to mean something, for it to really resonate with the audience, I think Peter needs to be more than a teddy bear. Now, he doesn't need to be some crass asshole all the time, but we need to believe that that capacity to be the worst version of himself is always present inside him, because it's in overcoming those impulses that he feels truly heroic. I just don't get that with this Peter Parker yet. But I'm also not going to write him or the show off. There's still plenty of episodes to go, and there's enough promising elements here to build something compelling on. Here's hoping your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man can make the most of them. So there are two constants in life: new Spider-Man cartoons every few years, and me talking about Nebula on this channel. And for good reason. The fact is, Nebula is better than ever. I've got some exclusive stuff coming up there, alongside exclusives that already exist only on Nebula. I'm really excited for what 2025 has in store for it. Like Patrick H. Willems' The Dinner Plan, featuring Severance's Zach Cherry and the Tick's Griffin Newman, among other faces that you'll probably recognize. Nebula continues to be the boutique streaming service where you can watch all my videos totally ad-free, not to mention ones by Tierzoo, Polyphonic, Nando V Movies, Lindsay Ellis. They're all there alongside so many others, encompassing so many styles of videos. So don't miss it. Get a yearly Nebula subscription at go.nebula.tv/captainmidnight right now. You can also find that link down in the pinned comment or description.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once, because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started, because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and prizes too.